So, good evening. We are discussing with what attitude we should approach the Bhagavad Gita, or for that matter, with what mindset we should read the Bhagavad Gita. As we have discussed in our previous meet, that every scripture or shastra, as we call it, in Sanskrit it is called shastra, has aspects, two elements, two tenets. One is temporal, the other is eternal. The temporal concerns with the time when that particular scripture was written, and the social customs, the social surroundings, all these things, they come in temporal aspect. But so far as eternal aspect is concerned, the things, the elements, the message that is there in that particular scripture, which is beyond time and space, for all times to come, these messages remain fit and valid. They go on uplifting the human psyche to a considerable level. It is already there. Well, so when we are going to study a particular scripture, we must be more concerned with the latter one, the eternal one. The temporal aspect, though it is to some extent important, we may not concern much about that. Yes, the time, the place, they have their influence, they have their effects that cannot be denied, that will be there. For example, Shakespearean plays, they have their temporal aspect. Almost all the scriptures, they have their temporal aspects. But the eternal one, we must have to concern or give importance to. Now, the other thing is, what is after all a scripture? How can we call it a scripture or shastra? What is special in it? There are many books available. There are many, uh, well, these, big volumes, they are also available. But when we call a particular thing a scripture, a shastra, what is special in it? What is there in it which is not there in others? So, a scripture is that one which helps us to be free from an egoistic temperament and makes us free from these mundane attachments so that we can reach or we can scale greater heights. That's the job of a scripture. That is the job of a scripture. If it fails to do all these things, then perhaps it cannot be a scripture. Because normally what happens in us, normal human beings, whenever we undertake a job, whenever we do a thing, anything. We do it for some purpose. And every purpose has an egoistic background. For example, if I'll be doing this job, then perhaps this job must suit me. Whether this particular thing, if I do it, can help me, or whether it is beneficial to me or my family, or even in a greater sense to my society. All these things come into the picture or come into the consideration. So that is an egoistic attachment. But scripture, or for that matter, all the scriptures, they just try to free us from this egoistic doings. Ego has to go. This ego has to go. Because if it persists, then it can pollute everything. Because with ego in the background, a man cannot be free or cannot be called a liberal man in the sense that whatever he thinks, whatever he does, or whatever job he undertakes are guided by this ego. Sometimes ego comes in a guise, in a disguise. We may not know whether this is ego or something else. That is very important. It can come in 1001 ways. Sometimes being humble. Also, ego might be behind this. I am so much humble, but he is not. In comparison to him, I am more humble. So, in a way, ego, perhaps it is a thing. Sometimes we may not measure the depth of ego, but it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. And sometimes Sri Aurobindo speaks about a collective ego, and that is more dangerous. Collective ego. When a group or a collection has an ego problem, it can be very dangerous. It can be very dangerous. Yes. So, scripture helps us to be free from these egoistic doings and get to a height better than what we are at present. It must do it. So, that attitude must be there when we will be approaching any of the scripture. Any of the scriptures. And Gita, the Bhagavad Gita is a great scripture. That must be born in our mind. Yes, it is a scripture, and this scripture has all these qualities. They are there. So Shastra, Sarvasya Lochanam Shastram, we have been told. Sarvasya Lochanam Shastram, Jasya Natyandhaye Vasaha. Shastra is just like eyes for a man. And who doesn't have it or who doesn't follow it is a blind. Is a blind man. Andha. Jasyanathyandhaye vasaha. That's what we have been told. In our culture, it has been told that Shastra is exactly like eyes. So, if that is the case, whenever we are reading a scripture, we must be very careful. What is there for us, which you can accept, which we can take in. But so far as the Bhagavad Gita is concerned, there are many things. There are many things also. Even to an outsider, it may seem that these are rituals or maybe temporal, but they have also wider connotations. they have wider implications. For example, one is yajna. One is yajna. So yajna is something, at that time, yajna was considered to be a source of interaction between the human beings and the gods. That was what there in our scriptures. So yajna was the medium through which man was able to communicate with the gods. But what is yajna? Sometimes when Max Muller took the Veda to Europe, many people said Veda is just a bunch of rituals. But in the Bhagavad Gita also, yajna is mentioned. But some outsider may think it temporal. It's a temporary thing. It belongs to that age when it was written. But it is not the case. In the third chapter, Sri Krishna says to Arjun, Sahajagyaha pradasuštva purovacha pradapatihi anena prasavishadva mesa vastištva kamadhuk. Sahajagyaha pradasuštva. I have created the entire generation with yajna. The other name of yajna, Sri Aurobindo has given sacrifice. It is sacrifice. What we give, that is what yajna is. Sahajagya praja sruštva. The God says to Arjuna that I have created the entire human beings with yajna. And some lines below the line, he says, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhava jagyat bhavati parjanya jagya karma samudbhava karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakhyara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam jagye pratishthitam. Annad bhavanti bhutani. All the beings, living beings, they live by arna, food. Arnat bhavanti bhutani. So from food, all these creatures are created. Parjanat anna sambhava. Where from this food comes? From parjanya, rain. From rain, the food comes, and from the foods, the entire living organisms, all these living creatures are created. So, where does this rain come from? Jagyat bhavati parjanya. From Jagya, this rain comes. Then what is this Jagya? Where does this Jagya come from? Jagya karma samudbhavaha. From karma, from act, from action, from work, Jagya comes. What a beautiful, sloka, a verse. But the Bhagavad Gita says, Jagya is just not the sandalwood will be there, will be gathered, and then, butter and ghee will be poured into it, and then it will be set to fire. That is not Jagya. Whoever does his work properly, sincerely, he does a Jagya. So, karma, act, is the first thing. From karma it is Jagya. From Jagya, rain comes, and from rain, food is produced, and with the food, all the creatures are fed and they are created. So that's what the definition of Jagya, the Bhagavad Gita says. So if we say Jagya is just a ritual, how come all these things follow? Then this karma brahmodbhavam siddhi. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi, brahmakhyara samudbhavam. And this karma is in Brahma. Brahma is existence, a Brahmic existence. Brahmisthiti. In Sanskrit it is called. So karma, the existence of karma is in the Brahma. So Brahma, karma, yajna, rain, food and living beings. This is the hierarchy. This is the hierarchy. Brahma, the supreme, is above. And from the supreme comes the karma, act, action, work. From the work we get the yajna. Whoever does his karma or action, he does his yajna. From yajna, rain comes. From rain, food is produced. And from food, this all the entire this I mean the living organizations, all the living organizations, they come out of that. So how can we say this version is temporal? It only belongs to that age. Similarly, there are many examples we can give also. But the fact is, we must be very careful while approaching a scripture like this, that what must be our mindset. It is not that we are facing some problem and somebody said, you read the Bhagabadgita and every problem will be gone. Well, that may be possible, but that should not be the purpose for which we will be reading or we will be studying or we will be chanting the Bhagavad Gita. Well, the shlokas, the mantras, they have their own values, they have their own benefits also. But the purpose must be very clear in our mind. While we are doing something, this must be very clear in our mind. So thank you so much. We'll be meeting again in the next episode.